Here I'm preparing some Osage orange. I'm ripping a small piece into sections that are going to make up the barrel of the pen. Now that I've got a few small pieces, I need to drill 7mm holes into which the brass pen barrels can be glued. Doing a little bit of cleanup before moving on to the next step. These are the brass pen barrels, and a little tool that I made that I used to insert those pen barrels into the wooden blanks. As we're gluing them into place, I need to add more CA glue to fill in any voids that might appear, as you can see me doing here. This glue takes a little bit of time to fully cure, so after a day I come back and I'm going to trim off the ends. I'll do any additional gluing that's needed to make sure the pen barrels are fully glued into place. Alright, at this point I'm going to trim the ends of the barrels flush. I'll trim them using a special tool. Essentially, I'm trying to make it so that the edge of the wood is the same level as the edge of the brass barrel inserts. That one there has a little bit of a burr on it, which we'll come back to later. I'll just do a little bit of cleanup now. At this point, we've trimmed the ends, so I'm going to go ahead and remove a little bit of the excess width from these blanks. This will reduce the amount of effort during the turning process. These pieces were a little bit too thick, but it's always better to have a little bit more width than not enough. For example, in case the drill goes in at an angle and you wind up blowing out of the side. Alright, now we get to the fun part. So there's two halves to make up the pen barrel, and each one takes roughly 5 minutes to make. After about 10 minutes, we'll end up with a close approximation to the final shape of the pen. On that note, all of the video footage you're watching has been sped up to 700%, so what you're seeing is actually moving 7 times the real-time speed. If I wasn't trying to film this, I might not have done all of the rough turning on one half prior to moving on to the second half. I might have started from the left and gone all the way to the right, doing both pen barrels at once. The benefit of doing it that way is you don't have to worry about bumping into the unturned half, but really either way works just fine. I'm gently cleaning up the ends. Now we'll move on to sandpaper. In this case, I started with 120 grit sandpaper to remove a little bit more material. This gives me finer control for material removal. Then I move on to 600 grit. This is to finalize the texture of the wood and make it as smooth as possible. I haven't used any intermediate grits, as it really isn't worth it in my opinion. We'll just do a little bit of cleaning up before moving on to the next step. So at this point, we've got our final shape and size. The next thing I'm going to do here is apply the finish. Initially, I allowed the pen mandrel to spin at its lowest setting, but that can cause ridges to build up if I do it for too long. Instead, I'm doing a sort of back and forth linear application. This finish takes 24 to 48 hours to fully cure, so I'm going to let this sit overnight several nights. Once it's cured, I'll remove it from the mandrel and start the assembly process. Here I'm inserting the tip of the pen. I'll have to remove a burr from the other side because of what I mentioned before, where I got a bit too aggressive with the flush trimming bit. Now I'm inserting the action of the pen. Any vise with a large enough throat could be used to press these pieces together, but a pen press is really convenient. I just have to press the top portion together and then slide it onto the pen action. And there we go. The result is a handmade pen made from local Osage orange that I harvested myself. I hope you found this educational.